My Lords, I have listened to the discussion, the quite detailed discussion we've had so far on our attempt at line-by-line scrutiny of the bill in relation to respect orders, and weighing up the pros and I think rather more cons. I'm very aware that what I'm going to say might seem as though it's being glib about antisocial behaviour. And I'm sure that if people are listening in, they might think, oh, these crowd who are raising problems of civil liberties are just not aware of the real scourge that antisocial behaviour is, and the impact and the misery it can cause on ordinary people's lives. And indeed, the noble Lord Panic, and I think the noble Lord Blencathra, maybe gave us a bit of a taste of what that antisocial activity can feel like in local areas. And I did recognise the descriptions of particularly young people. The noble Lord Blencathra described potentially of running mock in local areas, just based on where I live, that has been known to happen. So I can recognise that. But I think the problem is that I don't think it would be appropriate for us to be, as it were, emotionally blackmailed into suggesting that if we're opposed to some of these antisocial behaviour orders being brought in, it's because we don't care about ordinary people suffering antisocial behaviour. I think the query is, it's not that we should be told to shut up and put up, but I think that we need to, I'm not satisfied anyway, that respect orders will help. They're certainly not going to help increase the amount of respect in society, particularly of young people respecting people, authority or what have you. And I think that there's a danger that they themselves could become a scourge. I mean, I'm convinced, and I think I'm going to use the civil level of proof here, on the balance of probabilities, that respect orders are too problematic to keep in the legislation without something of a real challenge. I did want to challenge the noble Lord, the Minister, about the manifesto commitment, because I know that it was a manifesto commitment to introduce respect orders, but with respect, the electorate wouldn't know what a respect order was. They do want the government and they do want politicians to tackle antisocial behaviour. They do want more respect in standards. They don't know what a respect order is. We can barely understand what a respect order is ourselves, and the bill has only just been put before us. So I don't think one would be betraying the manifesto commitment if you were to say this particular order that we dreamt up because it's got a good sounding title isn't fit for purpose. I wanted to just remind ourselves of what we've been asked to sign up to. Respect orders are not just to be used to deal with an individual engaged in antisocial behaviour. You can also be issued with an order if it's concluded that someone threatens to engage in said behaviour. And that is a preventative order that can be dangerously open-ended. What does threatens to engage in? And it means that criminal sanctions based on speculation but not on actual behaviour can be applied. It's also the case that this is based on a definition of antisocial behaviour as defined as not just conduct that has caused harassment, alarm or distress to any person, but conduct that is likely to cause distress, alarm or harassment. And I'm emphasising that because I feel as though these things matter, that we just end up arming the state with new tools, and I'm not completely convinced they're going to tackle the problem. So if I could just use the notion of young people and shoplifting and antisocial behaviour and running amok, even though I know that's a caricature of a noble Lord Blencathra style caricature, no disrespect, but you know, and it's kind of like a Daily Mail image. But the main thing is that when those activities are happening, I don't think that there is an intervention using the laws that we already have. A lot of these things are already illegal. They're certainly antisocial, but they're already actually criminal activities, and nobody does anything. So I'm worried about having too open-ended a criminalising clause that can be doled out to people, but not necessarily tackle the problem. On the harassment, alarm and distress, I've been doing a lot of work with university students, and I can assure you that on universities there's a huge amount of harassment, alarm and distress being caused, particularly in relation to, for example, the pro-Palestinian activists disrupting lectures, threatening lecturers, kind of explicit Jew hatred on campus. And everybody goes, well, what can we do? Well, you could issue them a respect order, but even I don't think that's the kind of way that we should deal with it. The point is that we are using these things, it seems to me, as an abdication of responsibility for acting by basically creating another legislative tool. Overall, the statutory test for imposing respect orders, in my opinion, is too broad and vague in terms of language to be a safe new legislative change. I'm mindful that respect orders can also have significant impacts on our citizens' rights and freedoms, and I do think that rights and freedoms are important. These are a form of behavioural control order that imposes limitations upon a person's liberty and daily activities in an attempt at preventing unwanted behaviour, behaviour that's actually quite subjectively defined. And to do this, they provide the state with unfettered discretion to do anything described in the order, and that might include imposing curfews, electronic monitoring, restriction on who a person can communicate with, where they can travel to, and even can exclude people from their own home, things we've already heard about. There are no limits to the type or number of prohibitions or requirements that can be imposed, and respect orders can be imposed without notice, as we've already heard, without telling the person the order has been made against them. And they can be imposed for an indefinite period with no provision to remove conditions imposed. These are quite draconian challenges to our civil liberties regime, and we don't even know if they work. And we're told by the Noble Lord the Minister that the pilot scheme has been put off because it's urgent we get on with using these orders. I would suggest that what's urgent is that we get on with enforcing the laws that we have and ensuring that those laws are used to punish wrongdoing, rather than creating a whole new legislative framework that also will probably not be enforced, but nonetheless gives the state a lot of powers that I'd rather they didn't have without much more scrutiny. So I would like this to stand apart from the bill and get rid of respect orders altogether.
I'm prompted to rise following